I'm with you. I'm a big sort of like a kid's not going to starve in a house full of food kind of believer, and like they will be fine. But it's interesting. I love what you said about 3 a week because it's true. I mean, it's one thing when your kid is 3 and another kid when my daughter's now in second grade. I mean, she can. I'm happy to help her make her crazy hair, but sometimes I'm like, okay, I love the idea of Sarah giving them the responsibility. And one thing I do talk about in this book in terms of ways to kind of create more time for yourself is chores, because kids, when we were, our generation, parents don't give their kids chores really in the same way anymore. We bear a lot more of the burden. And if you want to free up some of your time from household labor, there's not just you. If you have a family, it's not just you and your partner, or, maybe just you. There are kids who can, they can't do everything, but they can do some things. And it's interesting. I talk a little bit about, there was this social media like meme thing that went viral that was like age appropriate chores, and some of them like seemed so insane. It was like bringing in the firewood for like 2-year-olds, but some of it is like, trying to make your bed or putting your laundry in your hamper. I mean, just sort of like things that kids can handle. And the research shows we don't really give our kids chores the way they used to, and that the kids who do have chores are actually better off. And oftentimes, of course, we give them to girls more than boys. So just things to kind of consider. But remembering that in part of this sort of hovering and intensive parenting, sometimes I think we forget, and I love what you said. I'm going to try to emulate you. And when it comes to Spirit Week, because forgetting that our kids at a certain age, like they can be entrusted to do more than we think.
Yeah. And something I'm like with this Zoom school, homeschool, home parenting, I'm trying to teach them to be more responsible for their own effort and their own work, and taking the lead from the teachers. I mean, it's taken me a year to get to this point, but I'm like, your teachers put an expectation in the app of what you have to get done.
Yeah.
I can sit there and help you, but if you don't do it, that's your problem and you're gonna have to answer to your teacher. So then my son was, after missing quite a few assignments, didn't want to go to his one-on-one with his teacher. I'm like, that's what happens when you don't pay attention to what she puts in there. You don't take the ownership. And I think, I mean, like I said, it's taken me a year to do this. So
it's really,
we're ready to go back in in 3-4 weeks. And I'm like, well, part-time, you're still gonna have to do homework. So
I
hopefully
think for me, one of the hardest things about this home remote learning experience has been, suddenly I was sitting, when they're at school, I can like separate and be like, you're at school, your teacher's in charge. But when they're at home, then I felt the responsibility of making sure that they had done all their work. And I would be sitting in the afternoon with my daughter, and she wanted me to just sit with her while she did the way our school worked. It was sort of like live school in the morning, and kind of asynchronous time in the afternoon. And I did have her teachers in a parent teacher conference and be like, you don't need to sit with her. Like, she's in second grade. She has to learn to do these things herself. She can do it. And it was really, even me, a person who wrote an entire book about this, needed the reminder. So I think we all, especially now, it's even more of a village situation. It takes a village.
Yeah. I didn't read your book, Rachel, but I think a lot of what you said and what was on the website has really resonated with me as far as finding these things that you enjoy and spending those moments and time doing what you enjoy. And something that I've been trying for multiple years, and this feels like multiple years. I think it was 2019 I read Fair Play by E. Brodsky. I don't know if you guys have read that, but my husband, I gave him the Cliff Notes version. I'm like, here's what it basically says, and kind of sharing the mental load. And I think that's helped me find pockets of time when we both commit to sharing the mental load. But I think that between that and then finding those pockets of time to do things that are enjoyable is really important. And I like how you called out, writing down a list of things that you'd like to do, because it's even like working out. Like, I'm used to going to a class where there's somebody just telling me what to do, and I just show up and I do what they tell me. I don't have to get my equipment out. I don't, other than show up in the proper attire. Like, that's the only responsibility, right? And now I'm like, no, this means I have to set the time aside. I have to get all the gear out. I have to get myself ready, which takes 3 hours longer than it should because I'm being interrupted constantly, right? Not 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So
some people like tell me they they have certain workouts and it's great, they can do it with their kids around, and I mean, whatever to do, it works for them. But for me, I'm always like, no, my kids, that I'm not really getting the benefits that I'm looking for when my kids is like sitting next to me, even if they're just, we have a bike at home, and if I'm there and my kid is like doing cartwheels and putting their hand near the wheel, and I'm just spending the whole time panicking that someone's gonna like get killed in the room, it's just like sort of defeats for me the purpose of exercise, which is as much for me mental as it is physical. So yes, I can relate to that. And I do always say to people when they say, how do we in these times, and Stevie sort of touched it, of COVID and quarantine, get out and do the things, make the time for ourselves. And I always, I try to call on my husband and my kids the same as I did when we could go places. But I say, like, instead of me saying I'm going to a book club, well, now I'm going to book club, and then I go downstairs and I turn on my computer and I go to book club the way we're all talking here. But I still try to be pretty clear about like, or, I have a group of friends and we're going to have a Zoom call and have a catch up because we haven't seen each other and haven't been able to. But I still sort of call in the help that I need in the same way of saying like, I'm not here for your purposes. I'm not here. Like I go out of sight so they can't see me and they don't think I'm sort of available.
On that point, what I thought was so smart and yet theoretically so obvious was how you put the burden on Matt to make sure that like that's your time. So like he knows he has to be home, right, to cover. And if he can't, he's got to find the sitter. Whereas I'm pretty sure that would always just be me by default, making sure everyone is okay and everyone's where they need to be and everyone's got their stuff straight, even though that was always supposed to be my night and you knew exactly where we were all going to be. And now all of a sudden you have something that comes up, burden should be on you to then resolve it. But it always ends up falling on me because I would feel like it should be.
It's hard. And it is, I think it takes communication. Like I have said to Matt, okay, like I put on the calendar, this is book club. And I'm like, if you have something, like if something comes up, I'm not saying you can't do something too, but you have to handle it. I mean, we had to sort of explicitly have that conversation. But it's also, I think, up to me or up to you or to also, because I'm similar where I just like, I've had like a therapist be like, well, what if you just like didn't handle it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, and we're so used to, part of it is my own doing of like wanting to be in control. And there is this phrase called maternal gatekeeping, which is this idea of sort of us wanting to control how how dads interact or our, husbands or partners interact with our kids. And the more we can let go of that and like, whenever Matt is like wrestling with the kids, I'm always like, stop. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just leaving. Like, I can't control this. You guys are okay. It's not the way I would do it, but that's okay. And I talk in the book, I had this colleague who his wife was going to like Hawaii with her sister or something major. And she left him 23 pages of notes, like hanging up all over. I mean, he showed me a picture, like all over the kitchen of like the way he should do everything. And I was like, that does not seem relaxing for anyone, and he was like laughing about it, but he was like, she's nuts. I can handle it. Like I'm an adult and I'm their father. And so I think some of it is sort of letting go of our own control stuff, myself included, to like trust other people to handle it.
Kim, your eyes got huge on that. I mean, to be fair, my eyes also got huge on that. But I know you've got multiple little ones at home, so I imagine making the time for you is never easy. I wonder how much of this has resonated with you, or anything you thought of. Share. Would love to hear from you, because your eyes bugged and my eyes bugged too.
Well, the one time that I went away for the weekend, my mother-in-law came in to help, so. I can definitely relate on some instances. My kids probably would have had Happy Meals the whole week otherwise. But yeah, I think that I've resonated on lots of things as far as just trying to find something that is mine, that is something that I enjoy, not something that I think that I should be doing. And the shoulds that Rachel talked about, especially, like there's always that time. I told my husband, a couple weeks ago that I just feel so bad about sitting down on the couch, even just to take a breath for a second, because there's this long list of all the things that have to happen. And, you know, if I don't do them, then they're not going to happen. So maybe that book that Joey read is a good one. And I'm going to look at Rachel's too. Just trying to carve out that time and finding it.
Yeah,
And
I think
it's a challenge.
we will do the things that need to get done will get done is what I believe. And again, I never suggest like neglecting anything, but also sort of putting yourself on the list, you know, and even if it's 10 minutes without feeling guilty. And it's funny, I think it does take a little bit of introspection and some moments of like self-reflection to figure out what it is we like. When I made my list, I put like go for a walk on it, because I just thought that that's like a thing that people actually want to do. And then I was like, I live in Chicago, so like it's cold half the time. And unless I'm like on the phone, I don't really want, like, I'm always sort of like, am I done with this walk yet? Like, what am I doing? And so I had to sort of reassess what I liked doing and be like, that's okay. I think I like doing crossword puzzles instead, you know? And it's nice to have things that sort of might take different amounts of time. Like I do the mini crossword. It takes like literally, you know, on a bad day, 2 minutes, on a slow day. So, but yes, I think letting go of that guilt is the biggest thing, because yes, like it's so, just hopefully I can like be sort of the devil or angel on your shoulder, reminding you how good it is for you and for your partner and for your kids, for you to be feel a little less stressed, you know?
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. When you said making that list, I honestly was thinking, I was like, I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna put on that list, which is all the reasons to make that list.
It's true. I think we forget to think about what do we like to do, because we're so busy doing what our kids like to do. And one thing that's different today is that we do spend a lot of time also what's called like secondary parenting. So like we might be caregiving might not be our primary activity in that moment, but we're like watching TV with our kid, or we're going bowling with our children. You know, we're still caregiving in those moments. So there's a lot, and you know, I talk about this in the book, but you know, going bowling with friends is a lot different than going bowling with children. Or a day at the beach, you know, is not exactly a day at the beach when you've got kids and like floaties and sunblock, and you know, so there are sort of it's frankly, I think lose a lot of our identity and forget a lot of who we were when we have kids, and that is totally normal. And of course, becoming a mother or parent is a huge part of our identity once that happens in our life, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's sort of remembering the whole picture. But it does take some like moments of reminding yourself.
That I feel like is an amazing place to wrap. We want to remember that whole picture, because that is more or less the takeaway from today, I think, without a doubt. For me personally, I'm going to go try and write that list. I'm not sure what's going to happen on that list. Stevie, I think we can put that maybe into your group, see what people put on their list if we send that out there, because it's a great exercise, honestly. Yeah. 5 things you want to do with half an hour or less. I would be stunned how many people probably have trouble.
30-minute increments, that's sort of
yeah. No, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining.